Welcome everybody to the Cover 2 podcast. My name is Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
And we might be in the weirdest time we have ever been in here in the United States, but nonetheless, we're going to keep some normalcy here for everybody and bring you a Cover 2 podcast. We have NFL free agency that's been going bonkers the last couple days. There is a pretty good quarterback going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's a pretty good receiver coming to my Arizona Cardinals. And plenty of other players to look at. And then also we will just be discussing overall the fact that essentially all sports have been canceled up until the summer. So let's get into it first. Jared, before we even start any sports talk, how has it been for you the last couple days with a lot of this quarantine talk and a lot of the fact that there's just been really no sports overall?
Right. I've been wanting to pull my hair out, and I don't have a lot of hair to pull out in the first place. So it's been weird. I mean, thankfully, the NFL free agency process
honestly, seriously,
has continued to play out, and they did not postpone their events moving forward. They have kind of set strict guidelines for agents and players are not allowed to meet with the actual teams in person. Everything is being done over the phone or email or that type of thing. But the fact that at least there is some sports news going on, other than unfortunately having to hear about more and more athletes and more people around the world being diagnosed with the coronavirus. So yesterday, news broke that 4 Brooklyn Nets, including star Kevin Durant, did come down with the virus as well. And now it's being reported that the entire Los Angeles Lakers team and organization is going to be tested today because last week the Brooklyn Nets played the Lakers. I believe that was the last game before the NBA was canceled, right? So you're just continuing to see the domino effects, and obviously in that week, who knows, like LeBron James has obviously been with his family, and you don't know who else you've been in contact with, so you kind of have to backtrack and say, okay, in the last week, where have you been? Were you at home? Did you go out to eat anywhere? Who were you with? Who did you contact? Whether you shook hands with someone? It really is just mind-boggling to think that all of this has really come to light, and I'm glad that we're having a show today and that we can talk about sports for a little bit and hopefully take people's minds off of what is going on. So, hopefully this can kind of bring a smile to people's faces, and we can enlighten you on some of the latest NFL news at least, and then we will get in a little bit later talking about, the fact that basically every sport has been canceled, what this means, maybe when we can see a potential return to sports, and hopefully fans can be involved in that process as well.
Yeah, well, we'll get into the fact, because obviously everyone knows that every sport has pretty much been canceled. There's nothing going on. Fights have been canceled. Right. It's not just sports, it's, entertainment overall.
I did see professional cornhole being played. That was still going on. So, right. They were right next to each other, as close as you and I are right now. So they weren't technically 6 feet apart.
Technically, we're violating the 6 foot rule.
A little bit. But to get us both in camera, we had to be close. So we're both taking risks right now.
It's a camera problem.
Because I don't know where you've been.
I've been at home.
You've been at home?
I've been at home.
Okay, I've been at work and here at home, so I guess maybe
we're good.
You're more at risk. We should be okay. We're going to take a risk
so you're
for you guys to bring you this show today.
Even if we're sick, we're going to still bring you
That's okay.
Okay. But we'll go over what I was going to say is we're going to go over the fact of not only when we think these sports are going to happen, but what we think will happen to the next seasons after that, because they're starting, if NBA is going into July, August, all that stuff, then obviously the next season is affected, but we'll get into that a little bit later. You said you wanted to bring smiles to people's faces. There is nothing more that I think is bringing smiles to people's faces in sports today than the fact that Tom Brady isn't on the Patriots anymore. Okay? I was wrong.
I called it.
I doubled down. I even started tweeting every day that he was going to go back to the Patriots. I was wrong. He ends up more than likely. We're recording this podcast on Wednesday, so when Tom Brady does officially sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we will have not seen that yet, but we do it. It's about 99.9% chance.
It's a foregone.
Yeah, he goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so we're going to talk about it like he's going to the Buccaneers 100%. Jared, what's your first thoughts? He's gonna play for Bruce Arians and the Buccaneers.
It's just seeing him in a uniform.
Yeah, it's weird.
In a red and I guess what is that, brown? Whatever their color is, uniform. It's just.
I didn't know.
It's different. It's a smaller market. That was one of the first things that came to my mind. The LA Chargers, I think, were also heavily involved in this process of trying to acquire Tom Brady for a multitude of reasons. Tom Brady is from California. The Chargers are like the second fiddle to the Rams right now. They're like the ugly redheaded stepchild that no one really seems to care about. And I think the Chargers really wanted to bring Tom Brady there from, just from an exposure factor, right? It's LA, so Tom Brady can continue to build his production brand. Obviously, his wife, who is a model, she, I'm sure, would have loved to have been in LA. Florida's not a bad place to be either, right? The Sunshine State. But I think it really came down to the Chargers and to the Bucs, and I think Tom Brady made a football decision to go to Tampa Bay and play for the Bucs because that team is more ready to contend for a Super Bowl right now than the Chargers are, right? You like I said, I mentioned all the reasons why he could have come to California and played in LA, and I don't think anyone would have batted an eye. It would have been like, oh my gosh, that makes all the sense in the world. But for Tom Brady to say, no, I'm not going to go back home to California and play, right? I'm going to take a risk with not building my, post-life football career in my production company. I might put that on hold for a minute. Not to say you can't do it in Tampa, but Tampa is not as big as LA. No. But for him to go to Tampa Bay and make a legit football decision, I think that speaks volumes. Here's another thing with going to the NFC, right? You don't have to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year, right?
No.
As if he would if he went to the Chargers because they're in the same division. I don't believe so, but I haven't looked at the schedule. I don't believe he has to play Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. So you get out of the AFC with having to play two of potentially the top teams in that conference. What's very interesting? He's now in the same division as Drew Brees.
Yeah, that's
Tom Brady, Drew Brees, 1-2 in all-time passing yards right now. So that'll be an interesting thing. They get to play twice a year. So I'm excited to see Tom Brady in a different light, in a different uniform. And the big question that I feel that everyone is going to be talking about, we will now see who was really,
yes.
I don't want to say in charge, but the reason why the Patriots won those 6 Super Bowls. Was it because of Tom Brady or Bill Belichick? We will find out after this season is over, who has the better record, who had the better season, and then we can make a better judgment on who was really more, the reason why the Patriots had those 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be telling. I think more on Bill Belichick's, resume, because if he's able to have really any success with a quarterback that's not Tom Brady, I think there's I'm talking about playoffs, a playoff win, something like that. I think that probably solidifies it. That Bill Belichick probably is at least more of the reason.
And let's remember back in 2011 when Tom Brady tore his ACL, Matt Castle came in, and I believe he went 11-5. Yep. So Bill Belichick has proven
he already does have
that he can do it without Tom Brady, albeit it was just for 1 year. So maybe the emphasis is a little more on Tom Brady to say, okay, you're leaving the Patriots and that foundation. Maybe it's more on him, on Tom Brady to see. But still, it's going to be interesting with Bill Belichick right now. They have Jared Stidham as their quarterback who they drafted last year, I believe, in the 3rd or 4th round. I don't think many people know who Jared Stidham is, right? The fact that he is the only quarterback on the Patriots roster right now, he is QB1.
QB1.
So if he is QB1 to begin the NFL season, hopefully if the NFL season starts on time, right, that will be a telling sign that Bill Belichick has all the faith in the world in a second-year quarterback who not many people even know his name.
I don't think he will be. I think he'll be QB2, QB3 by the time the season starts.
Okay.
But getting back to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and all this stuff, it is interesting that that instead of one of them retiring, or one of them moving on, one of them retiring, that they're now going to compete against each other in some ways. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers do not play the Patriots. The Patriots play the NFC West this year.
They would have to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. They would have to go to the Super Bowl in order to play Tom Brady. Which Patriots have done a bunch. Buccaneers have not. I believe only once with John Gruden, right? One
Yes.
that they won.
Against Oakland.
I don't even think, have they made the playoffs since then?
It's been a minute.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time for the Bucs.
Bruce Arians, obviously, with the with my Arizona Cardinals, very successful with a lot of the players that he had. Rejuvenated Carson Palmer's career. I think that's what they're thinking about with Tom Brady. Tom Brady a lot older than Carson Palmer. Not that he needs to rejuvenate.
Okay.
I
was going to say this isn't about rejuvenation.
Yeah, I used the wrong word, but that Tom Brady or that Bruce Arians is able to coach an older, more over-the-hill quarterback in a way. It's a quarterback that's not 100% in their prime anymore.
Okay.
He's able to still use assets. He's able to use their skill set in the risk it, no biscuit offense.
Oh, is that his saying?
I think, yeah. He says, it's no risk it, no biscuit.
No risk it, no biscuit.
Yeah. Why do you think Jameis threw 30 interceptions last year?
Oh, okay.
Number one, because he can't see it, and the other thing is because...
he can see. He just got LASIK surgery done last month.
You're right. Now he can. And
right.
Yeah. You think Bill Belichick will take a chance at Jameis Winston real quick, just for no reason?
No. Hell no. He threw 30 interceptions. You think Bill Belichick wants any part of a quarterback that throws 30 interceptions?
They're starting to run out of quarterback options, too.
Cam Newton.
I mean, Cam Newton's more of a diva than Jameis Winston is.
We're not talking about divas. We're talking about throwing interceptions right now. Cam Newton does not throw 30 interceptions in one season.
I think he was on pace for a lot last year, a few when they got hurt. But
on pace for a lot. He didn't even play.
He was the most inaccurate quarterback in the league.
We're getting a little off topic, and we need to stick with Tom Brady right now.
Yes.
Don't get me started.
Okay, get back to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers overall. This offensive roster is pretty good. You have Mike Evans. You have a Chris Godwin who really showed out last year.
Speedster.
Fantasy football, great player, all that stuff. Rashad Perriman they have on that team as well. The running back in Ronald Jones the second finally kind of showed some promise that he showed when he was at USC.
Potential flashes.
Yeah, potential flashes. So, and then you add Tom Brady into that mix. He makes everybody better. We've seen this.
Right.
We've seen the Chris Hogans of the world go from Buffalo, where he barely played, to being a centerpiece of the Super Bowl team, to Carolina, where I think he had, I don't even know if he played that much last year.
The thing is, he was able to get a contract because of playing with Tom Brady.
And
right?
we saw Philip Dorsett last year, a guy that really was just lost in the shuffle in Indianapolis, proved to be a pretty important player. And we could go on and on about the guys that Tom Brady has made better. Or Bill Belichick, but usually you're gonna give it to the quarterback.
Julian Edelman,
he's
Wes
the one.
Welker,
So I fully expect him to use this complement of receivers and running backs and make them even better, which is scary for a guy like Mike Evans because he already is breaking wide receiving yard records and stuff like that. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Jared, do you think though, with the overall makeup of this roster, with the coaching staff? Do you think this team legitimately, in what we believe is going to be a 2-year deal for Tom Brady, in the 2 years that Brady will play in his career, do you think the Buccaneers will at least make a Super Bowl?
No, I do not. I think that they will make the playoffs, and I think they can win a game in the playoffs, but I do not see this team making it to the Super Bowl. Now, at the beginning of last year, I did not see the San Francisco 49ers making the Super Bowl. I don't think anyone did. And obviously, they elevated themselves. They had their own style of play that worked for them, like an old school, run the ball, tough nose, hard defense type of system. And it worked, and it got them to the Super Bowl, right? So, obviously, there's a chance. When you add Tom Brady, a 6-time Super Bowl champion, been to the Super Bowl 9 times in his career, yes, that is going to improve your odds. The one thing I will say about Tampa is that they did improve from the beginning of the season to the end, specifically their defense, which in the first half of the season was ranked 30th in the year. The second half of the season, they were top 10.
Yeah.
Right? So Todd Bowles, former defensive coordinator for the Cardinals, who you know very well, obviously was able to kind of mold that team, and they were able to grow. I believe they have like a top 5 pick last year, and they took that on the linebacker Devin White from LSU. So they had a lot of opportunities to really bring some young talent in, and I think it took some time. But as the second half of the season went on, you really saw those guys develop. So now heading into the second year with a little bit more experience, and you pair that with Tom Brady in that offense. Yes, I think it can definitely be successful and they can get to the playoffs. But to just automatically throw them in as a Super Bowl contender, I'm gonna, pump the brakes just a little bit. Like I said, you're in the same division as the Saints and Drew Brees, who just re-signed.
And he signed for a 2-year deal too. So it's almost like, remember, we have the records being broken by each guy every year. That's going to continue for at least one more year because Brees, who we just heard, we'll get into this in other podcasts, but Brees we just heard was going to retire. He was telling people at the Pro Bowl that he was done, and now he's not re-signed back. Right. So both guys probably thought about retirement in some ways and decided to sign 2 years deals, which could become 1-year deals if they decide to retire.
More than likely. And just the competitive spirit. I think really, so just very quickly for Drew Brees, listen, the last 3 seasons, the way that their playoffs have ended with literally last second just mind-boggling plays, there's no way that Drew Brees can go out like that. Now, he has won a Super Bowl before, so it's not like he's chasing his first ring, but I think Drew Brees, with this offense that they have in Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and all the weapons that they do have, it's almost a shame that they haven't made it to the Super Bowl yet. And like I said, whether it was the blown pass interference call, the Minnesota Miracle, it's just there's been a multitude of things that have happened that have gone against the Saints, and I think Drew Brees is saying one more time. Let's try it one more time. But now he's going to have to do it facing Tom Brady twice a year.
Yeah, but getting back to the Buccaneers, when you look at this defense, I think people forget that this defense is, like you mentioned, Devin White, Levante David, very serviceable veteran linebacker.
They re-signed Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yeah, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaquille Barrett, his franchise tag. He's one of the best outside linebackers in the league. They drafted Vita Vea last year. He's a big part, nose tackle, and Ndamukong Suh. They have as well.
Right, I forgot about Ndamukong Suh. So they've got some nice pieces up front. Some good building blocks.
Their front seven is very solid. Probably one of the better front sevens in the NFC. But still a little bit work to do. The offensive line has work to do as well there. So I'll tell you this, I don't think they're going to get to the Super Bowl this year. I'll guarantee it, although I did guarantee that Tom Brady was not going to be on the Buccaneers.
You did, so
you
shouldn't guarantee
no, okay, so 92% chance that they don't get to the Super Bowl.
92,
You can always have every quarterback in the NFC get hurt and then they make it, stuff like that. But with this roster currently, how it's constructed and how much money they're going to spend on Tom Brady as their quarterback, which they wouldn't have with Jameis Winston or any other really quarterback, to be honest. I do think that this team this year, it's kind of like a trial run, right? And I think that's why Brady signed a 2-year deal, because I think he sees this roster and goes, it's good, but potentially the Patriots roster is still better. So, and stuff like that. So, at least defensively.
Okay.
Defensively, yeah. So we'll see. But it's just, overall, it's crazy that Tom Brady is not going to be on the Patriots and he's not going to be even in the AFC.
I'm excited. I'm
excited too. And that's why I want to change the topic right here to the AFC East. Finally, we have an actual competition for the AFC East crown. The Patriots lose Tom Brady. Right now, the best quarterback they can really grab, like you're mentioning, is Cam Newton or Jameis Winston, and both of those guys right now, I don't think you could guarantee a division title with those quarterbacks.
Well, Cam Newton is still not 100% healthy, so we're still waiting to see that.
He is. My God, that guy's been hurt for like 4 straight years.
I mean, it's been like a year, but okay, we can extend it to 4. It's fine.
It's been longer than a year.
A little exaggeration.
It's different injuries. And you look at the Dolphins, free agent. You talk about free agent frenzy. I mean,
the Dolphins so far in the 2 days of the open free agency period have spent the most money out of any team, I believe.
I think
their guaranteed dollars that they have given the players has totaled close to $150 million. Just in guarantees, not in total contracts.
Well, I heard that when they made the splurge on day one, it was the most ever that one team spent on one day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they've signed Shaq Lawson, Kyle Van Noy. I'm gonna forget.
Byron Jones from Dallas.
Yeah, Byron Jones. Let's not talk about that.
A little tough.
And then they also have tons of draft picks. I believe at least 2 first-round picks this year.
Right.
They will draft a quarterback. They will have a Tua or Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow on their team next year. So that team looks like they could make a run at it. The Buffalo Bills, already a stout team last year, just grabbed Stephon Diggs.
You did?
Didn't give up any of their players for it. They gave up draft picks, but they didn't give up any of their actual roster for Stephon Diggs. And they have a quarterback in Josh Allen. And then you look at the New York Jets. Haven't done anything, but they have Sam Darnold,
the Jets are still the Jets.
And they've been getting better and better, if you can even say that.
Jets are still the Jets.
So really it's just between Bills and Dolphins and Patriots. And then the Patriots will actually compete, but it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to win like they have the last couple of years.
Right.
This is not going to be a Gonzaga situation anymore. That's how I like to compare it. Gonzaga wins the West Coast Conference every year, and it's not even close. The Patriots were doing that with the AFC East. Now let's, we'll have an actual competition. So
for the first time, I believe it was the mayor of Buffalo. Did you hear him in his press conference yesterday?
And this is what I loved about this too, because obviously we have a serious situation here in the United States with this coronavirus.
Around the world, not just the United States.
No, exactly. But so each city has kind of been putting their own guidelines out, trying to protect their own citizens. And the Buffalo Bills mayor, he decided to interject the fact that although this is going on, Buffalo should be happy because they don't have to play Tom Brady.
Right.
So you gotta love that stuff. It's one of the reasons we're doing our show today. We want to bring some enjoyment to your day.
Right.
Most of you are sitting at home with nothing to do. And,
probably out of Netflix shows to watch, like I am. So any recommendations on Netflix shows?
I need recommendations. I am bad at binging shows. I don't do that usually. I'm so intertwined with the sports world.
I heard The Mandalorian was great, so I think I'm going to get into that.
Okay.
But I wasn't a Star Wars fan. It is, I know.
See, I'm not going to get
So I need to get Disney Plus. Right. We're going to, comment
put it in the
and
comments.
give us
Put it in the comments.
Give us some shows to watch, because after this podcast, other than, continuing to look out for the new free agent signings in the NFL, there's not a whole lot of sports going on. So Nick and I
we need stuff to do.
We need our fix. So please help us.
The reason I'm wearing a hat is because I ripped all my hair out the last weekend. Although I had UFC to watch, which was nice.
Okay.
Empty arena, all that stuff.
I can't even imagine that. That just doesn't.
We'll get into that stuff later. There's so much to talk about with that, with the whole the empty arena playoffs, all this stuff.
Right.
Okay, but so let's. Do you want to say anything more about Brady, or should we move on to my favorite topic of the day?
The floor is yours, my man. Go ahead.
Okay, so when free agency started, it was to take our minds off of all what's going on and the fact that we're essentially having to stay home and people are losing their jobs, all that stuff. You're like, let's see what the Cardinals do, right? My Cardinals, this is a big free agency year. It's a big draft year. So I was wondering, are we going to grab a linebacker? Are we going to grab an offensive lineman? Do we want to add another offensive piece? Are we going to get Kenyon Drake back? All that stuff. And it started slow. We added Kenyon Drake, transition tag, that essentially spelled the end of the David Johnson era in Arizona. It was then announced that David Johnson was being traded to the Texans, which I was like, okay, good. And then I heard that the Texans were going to take his salary, which was awesome because that was the biggest issue. David Johnson has not played up even close to what the Cardinals were paying him. And Kenyon Drake had a couple 200-yard games last year. So it was really weird. It was an awkward situation a lot of times, even though the season was essentially over. We were Cardinals fans. I think Cliff Kingsbury was wondering, what the hell's going on? Is David Johnson okay? Is he? So obviously he's okay because you trade him. And then you hear the news that somehow,
drum roll, please.
Somehow, the Cardinals grabbed DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
Arguably, top 2, top 3 best receiver in the league.
I don't even think you could argue he has to be top 3, right? This guy doesn't drop a ball. He's been one of the reasons the Texans have even been a playoff team the last couple of years. For some reason, Bill O'Brien decided to gift all of us Arizona Cardinals fans one of the best wide receivers in the league to help out Kyle Murray in his second year, to join Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler in a receiving core, in a spread offense.
Keep going, man.
Jared, I couldn't be any happier. It's insane. Why did they trade this guy to us? I don't understand it. We gave up a second-round pick in this year's draft. We gave up a fourth-round pick in next year's draft. Those are valuable draft picks.
How you guys didn't have to give up a first-round pick?
Guess what? We got a fourth from the Houston, too, and didn't give up a first. Thank you, Houston Texans. You know what? I think this is actually, I just thought about this in my head right now. I didn't think about this before. The city of Houston screwed over my life overall the last year or so with the Houston Astros.
Okay.
So I think in some ways, I was gifted this DeAndre Hopkins gift because of what the Houston Astros did. Because let's not forget, the Houston Astros didn't cheat. And just because the season's being pushed back because of the coronavirus does not mean they didn't cheat. It does not mean those guys don't need to get hit by pitches. Jared, I'm going insane. So I need you to I have my coffee too.
I'm going to reel it back in. That's right, you do have your coffee. Last week you didn't, and you were off the walls.
I was nuts. Yeah.
You have a legitimate reason to be off the walls right now. And before I actually get into DeAndre Hopkins and what he means for the Cardinals, yes. I'm actually going to take the position of the Houston Texans. And if I'm in the Houston Texans front office, I am regretting the day that they gave Bill O'Brien the opportunity to not only be the head coach, but also general manager and all the duties that come along with that. There is only one other head coach in the NFL that has that responsibility of being the head coach and general manager. That is Bill Belichick, because he has won 6 Super Bowls.
He's a pretty good coach.
Bill O'Brien was at one time under Bill Belichick as a part of the New England coaching staff, so he does come from that tree. But that does not mean that you all of a sudden just give the reins to Bill Belichick and not hire a separate general manager to be able to kind of run the business operations, right? I don't know what the hell the Texans were doing. The fact that they did not get a first-round pick back for DeAndre Hopkins, regardless of the fact that they were taking on David Johnson and his $12 million, I do not care about that. I would not have made that trade if you're not getting back a first-round pick. DeAndre Hopkins is clearly in his prime, right? I believe he's like, 27, 28? One of the best receivers. I put him probably right behind Julio Jones. I think he's right there with Michael Thomas. You could put him 2A, 2B if you really want to. And you're right, they in a sense, no disrespect to David Johnson, I think he's still a good running back, and I hope that he does well with the Texans. But the Texans got peanuts in return for giving up the best player on your team, not named Deshaun Watson, right? If you're Deshaun, think about this. If you're Deshaun Watson right now, how pissed are you? Right?
Has he signed his extension yet?
No, he is not.
Oh.
He's still on his rookie contract, right? And if I'm Deshaun Watson, I so badly want to say, forget this quarantine. I'm going down to the Texans headquarters, and I'm speaking with somebody right now, because you just gave away my #1 receiving threat, and you're right. The main reason why the Texans were so successful, even in a weak division, right? And now you take him away. I'm stunned. I mean, great for the Cardinals that they were able to pull out. Like that, not even in the Madden game, like in the sports Madden game, would that trade even go through?
They did that. They actually did it, and David Johnson. It was the second round pick, all that stuff, and it didn't go through.
There's no way it will go through.
It went like halfway up the
right,
scale.
and I mean, not that really means anything. It's just like we're trying to put in perspective. If you play Madden, it's like there's just certain things that just don't make sense. Like this doesn't make sense. If you're like the Cardinals, when they were hearing this offer, I would be like. Wait, are you guys serious? A second round pick and David Johnson, and you're going to take this entire contract that we don't want? Where do we say? I don't think they could have signed the paper fast enough.
Steve Keim is actually known, he's the GM of the Cardinals, he's known for kind of pranking other GMs with trade calls.
Oh, really?
He tries a lot of times during the drafts to mess with GMs, just as a kind of a joke. And so he probably, you're right, he probably was like, you guys are messing, this is what I get.
Yeah, it's like payback.
And he's like, you're actually giving me
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Are you serious?
Yeah, we'll throw in the fourth for you.
Here you take second and fourth. What else do you want?
Exactly.
So, okay, now let's get to the Cardinals and what this actually means for this organization, right? They still have Larry Fitzgerald, who is the leader of that receiving locker room and really the leader of the entire team. You have Kyler Murray, who had a great year last year, easily could have been Rookie of the Year, right? Coming into his second year with Cliff Kingsbury, the spread offense. How do you see DeAndre Hopkins and his skill set fitting in with this offense and what they like to do?
I mean, it's perfect, right? And the way Cliff Kingsbury ran the system last year, it was spread, it was air raid, all that stuff. But he would change it if the other team's defense kind of fit a more running offense.
So it was dictated upon what the
well,
defense
that's what was
doing.
so dangerous about some of the Cardinals games last year, especially some of those teams trying to make the playoffs, was that the Cardinals would pull out 200 yards from Kenyon Drake out of nowhere, which you would never expect from the air raid, which has me and a lot of other people excited about what Cliff Kingsbury can do. Never did I think that they'd be able to add DeAndre Hopkins to this mix. If you're asking me how he fits, I don't think there's a team that he wouldn't fit on. I mean, he's wide receiver number one, no doubt about it. He has Larry Fitzgerald there to give him tips. He has other young receivers, speedsters like Andy Isabella and Christian Kirk. They can get past the defense when Larry and DeAndre Hopkins are covered. And then obviously you have Kyler Murray with one of the better arms in the NFL. He's able to get out of the pocket. I mean, just imagine this, Jared. Just imagine the fact.
My eyes are closed, and I'm picturing your
imagine
go ahead.
when Kyler Murray gets out of the pocket, and then the play is busted, and the original route, DeAndre Hopkins, has now gotten off his corner. I mean, how many times are the Cardinals going to have big plays next season just simply because DeAndre Hopkins is a receiver on their team?
It's magic, man.
It's magic. It's ridiculous. Again, like I don't even understand. I haven't fully processed the fact that we're gonna have DeAndre Hopkins on our team next year.
So are the Cardinals? Can I just throw this out there? Like, are the Cardinals? Is this their Super Bowl season? Like, can they get there?
I mean, I see it similar, but less likely, like the Buccaneers, only because they have a team that's close. But they have a lot of needs. I'm a big Kyler Murray fan, regardless of the fact that he's on my team. I wasn't the biggest Rosen fan, and he was on my team when later in the year I was originally because of my bias towards UCLA. But he's a pretty good quarterback, and he hasn't been injured in his career ever. There's really nothing to look at that would scare you away from thinking that Kyler Murray with these weapons will improve next year. And so it just has me excited. This offense is one of the better offenses in the NFC now.
They do need some help on the offensive line.
But now, see, here's the thing. We didn't give up the first round pick. And there's plenty of tackles and guards that are coming out in the first round where that Cardinals number 9 pick, there's no way they're not going to get an offensive lineman.
Attainable, you would think.
Yeah, so I think, we just re-signed DJ Humphries, who's been a solid left tackle. He hasn't been a great left tackle. And a lot of the linemen last year had some of their better years in the last couple of years for us. So, it's looking good. It's on the rise, but no, our defense is not good right now. And
so it's like offense is really good, and the defense needs some help to get it. See,
you know what it is? It's a Big 12 team.
Right.
Cliff Kingsbury has created a Big 12 Texas Tech, essentially.
Right.
But with a lot better players.
So, barring injuries, if this team can stay healthy, I'm going to preface this by saying, I'm not saying that they are the Kansas City Chiefs. Kyler Murray is not Patrick Mahomes. I'm not trying to, but in a somewhat similar comparison, the Chiefs last year, we knew that their offense was going to be electric. We knew their offense was going to be dynamic and they were going to put up points. The defense in the last few years was what was hindering that team, right? And all we were saying was the defense doesn't even have to be great. All they have to do is be average, right? Like, just give up less than 25 points a game, and more than likely, Patrick Mahomes and the offense can put up more than 25 points a game, and you will be able to win successfully. So for the Cardinals, I think it's kind of along those same guidelines. The Cardinals don't have to produce an elite defense. All they have to do is be, good, or even just average, right? Like, don't give up 30 points a game, right? Get some stops on third. Get key, timely stops. Yeah. Give the ball back to your elite offense, which on paper right now it seems to be pretty elite, at least in my opinion. And this Cardinals team, I think they can have success. I think one of the biggest hurdles that this team is going to have to go through is the fact that they are in a very strong division.
Yeah,
you're playing with the 49ers coming off of a Super Bowl run, right? The LA Rams, even though they took a step back last year, they're still very formidable. And you've got Seattle with Russell Wilson, and as long as they have Russell Wilson, they will always be in the mix. So I think that is the biggest thing, is you're in a very tough division. But as a team, I think this Cardinals organization just elevated themselves a lot. And like I said, if their defense can just be good, just be average, I think it's kind of a coin flip, or it's a toss-up as to who will win this NFC West next year.
Yeah, it actually is crazy. I know when you look at that division, and here's the one thing. What we probably aren't going to talk about on this podcast is the fact that the CBA was passed. There's so much going on.
Right.
So we will now have, not next year, but we will have that 17th game.
In 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
We will have an extra playoff.
Extra playoff game. Yes. So that means that actually the entire NFC West can make the playoffs, which I think is good. And I think a lot of other sports, there's some sports like baseball and hockey that don't allow an entire division essentially to make the playoffs. I don't think that's really fair because the best team should make the playoffs. So I'm glad the NFL will now allow a fourth place team in a division if they have a good enough record to make the playoffs.
That's interesting. I never thought.
Last year's Rams would have made the playoffs.
Right, it would have been the Rams and the Steelers who would have actually elevated themselves.
No,
to the
so
playoffs.
that would have already been 3 NFC West teams. And you look at it this year. There's an argument to be made that potentially every single team, if they get hot enough, could potentially win that division or could make the playoffs.
Right. The problem is because you have to play each team in your division twice.
Yeah.
It's almost like I don't know. You've got to go over 500. You have to go 4-2 because you could here's the thing. The Cardinals could. I could see the Cardinals going 4-2 in that division. I could also see them going 2-4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's literally
because when you look at what happened last year with a not very good team, they ended up only winning 5 games. They compete against Seattle very, very hard. It beat them the second game they played them. They 1-1. 49ers, I think they lost by combined less than 10 points the whole season with the 2 games they played them. The NFC champions. And the Rams did get blown out 1 game, but competed very hard in the last game they played them. So the Cardinals were really, really close against all of those division teams besides 1 game against the Rams. And like you said, they ended up being, they ended up being 1-5 in the division, but being very close in a lot of games they played. That's the 1-5 doesn't really truly show how they played.
There are no moral victories. 1-5 is 1-5.
No, the moral victory is getting DeAndre Hopkins. That's what the moral. We don't need moral victories when we're getting DeAndre Hopkins for no reason at all. I mean, it's still crazy to me.
Well, let's very quickly. There is a reason why DeAndre Hopkins is no longer in Houston, and reports came out this morning that they're still, I believe, trying to be verified and accurately reported, but that there was friction between head coach Bill O'Brien and former Texans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. It's still a little weird to say, in the fact that there was a meeting between the two, and Bill O'Brien allegedly. Said that DeAndre Hopkins, he associated him, to Aaron Hernandez.
That's a tough comparison.
Listen, to my knowledge, going back to DeAndre Hopkins' days, even in college, right, ever since he's kind of been in the national spotlight, I don't think DeAndre Hopkins has ever been in trouble with the law, ever, had any dysfunctional issues with an organization other than maybe with the head coach and Bill O'Brien, right? But to paint a picture or to even put DeAndre Hopkins' name in the same sentence, same breath as an Aaron Hernandez, I think is an insult. And I think from that point on, that's what started the turmoil and the eventual trade for DeAndre Hopkins ending in Arizona. Now, like I said, this is still, reports that came out this morning. There was a tweet actually by DeAndre Hopkins himself about an hour ago, in a sense, defending Bill O'Brien and, not wanting this to be a distraction. But Nick, as you pointed out before the show started, the tweet was deleted.
Well, that original tweet was deleted, but it seems like it's because there's no edit feature on Twitter. He wanted to edit something, and he did release. This is what DeAndre Hopkins said about this. He said, "This is being blown way out of proportion. As I've said before, I've enjoyed and am proud of my time with the Texans. I have the utmost respect for Coach O'Brien, and that will not change. Now I'm ready to play for the Cardinals." But I have seen him, because I, as a Cardinals fan, have followed him on all social media since this has happened. And there's been a lot of mentions by him about being happy to not be on the Texans anymore. So, and be happy that he's going to the Cardinals. This situation seemed like at first you'd think Hopkins would kind of be pissed that he was just traded out of the blue.
Right.
But he has been happy about this the entire time. and has been fully on board of being an Arizona Cardinal. And the Arizona Cardinals have not been the most model organization as far as not only with stuff outside of football, but on the field have not been very good. So for DeAndre Hopkins to be excited about joining the Cardinals, that's one thing, but to be, a little overjoyed at having been on a playoff team the last several years, it is a little fishy.
Well, so I'm actually going to then retract my statement, and if DeAndre Hopkins is coming out and in a sense defending Bill O'Brien and the Texans, then we need to just take his word for it and leave it at that, and not have any more speculation or anything as to why he was traded. In a sense, it is what is it. It is what it is. DeAndre Hopkins is looking to move forward, and apparently, not apparently, the Texans will be moving forward without their number one receiver, and now they have a huge void to fill. This is a very deep receiver class for the NFL draft coming up, so I would have to imagine the Texans are going to have to, try to acquire, use an early round pick on a receiver, but still, to say that somebody is going to immediately come in and fill the shoes of DeAndre Hopkins is, very, very tough to say and unrealistic almost.
It's going to be hard for them to draft a wide receiver early.
Nick is currently looking at the NFL draft order.
Because they don't have a first round pick.
Oh, that could be a problem.
Yeah. And guess what? We didn't give them a first round pick for DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. See, that's what
remember when they traded JV Clowney too?
Right.
Yeah, remember they didn't get a first round pick for him either.
Was Bill O'Brien the GM then?
I think he was.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're the Texans, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Maybe you relieve Bill O'Brien of his general manager duties.
Yeah,
and
just
just
let
let
him
him
coach.
focus. I'm not gonna say great head coach. I'm gonna say he's a decent head coach. I mean, listen, they've had to claw their way into the playoffs in a very weak division for the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm not gonna say that he's a great head coach. But yeah, I think the Texans need to hire a GM who can say, listen, I'm going to take care of this side of the football operations. You just focus on the team and worry about developing the players and getting them ready to go. Because it seems like I said, if you're Deshaun Watson right now or J.J. Watt, the 2 stars of this team, I mean, how are you not just shaking your head going, what are we doing, coach? Or what are we doing, GM? Yeah. I mean, if you're Deshaun Watson, not to say that he won't, but I mean, I think you have to have some reservations about signing a long-term contract with this organization. I mean, what are we looking at right here?
They got 5 draft picks in the whole draft.
5?
Yeah. So but here's the thing. They haven't gotten the Cardinals draft picks put over to them. So they will have 2 second-round picks, which means I would, if I'm them, you got to think about potentially trading up to the first round if you are going to draft a wide receiver. And the Cardinals are not going to draft a wide receiver now because you never know. But because they drafted like 4 of them in the draft last year. But the Cardinals more than likely were one of those teams that was really going to go after a Jerry Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb. That more than likely is going to happen because you're going to take the chance on DeAndre Hopkins and signing him to an extension. But I think they could do that. But it is just, it's strange that they didn't take advantage of the fact that they gave away J. Brown Clowney. And they gave away DeAndre Hopkins now, and essentially, there's no draft capital still. 0. They have less draft picks than most teams in the entire draft, and a trade just happened. And one of the picks the Cardinals gave them was for next year's draft, too, so it's not even for this draft. What are we doing here? And they gave one. So Jared, this pick right here is going to the Cardinals. Never mind. The Houston Texans, and we're going to move on to the coronavirus in a second, but the Houston Texans this year's draft, they are going to have 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, and 2 7th-round picks. That's it. That is it.
There's a phrase that I would love to use right now.
Stupid?
No. It has to do with trading and more so like in fantasy trades.
Yeah.
When you trade.
I know what you're going to say.
And I'm not going to say it.
That on our podcast. Yeah.
If you play fantasy and you trade within your fantasy team, and you probably got a bad trade, or maybe you forced someone else to trade when they really didn't want to, and it worked out in your favor. There's a certain phrase that is used for the person who got the short end of the stick. So some of you might get it. we can't say it here, but that just literally popped into my head.
You guys get it.
The Houston Texans got blanked.
Yeah, they did. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Okay, so to turn to a more serious note, we're sitting here talking about the NFL like it's, we're the season's coming up, all the stuff, we did the draft. But they, with this coronavirus and with the CDC's recommendations that most sports, most events, period, cannot even have more than 50 people for the next 2 months. Right. We're not going to see live sports until at least late May at this point. And the draft will now have no fans. Because of Vegas's restrictions, it's essentially a ghost town there right now.
Right, the MGM closed down.
I heard that all of essentially the gambling casinos at this point have shut. The Nevada's kind of forced them to.
That is.
But yeah, so what was supposed to be essentially a party in Vegas for the NFL draft was potentially going to be the biggest NFL draft in history. Is now going to still go on, but it's going to go behind closed doors, more like an MLB draft. So. That is, at least we'll have that, which is nice, coming in April. It'd be nice something in the middle of this that will, happen. But you're looking at the NBA playoffs. They likely won't start up again until June because there is still some of regular season. I do think the NBA is going to need to realize that they cannot play most of the remaining 19, 18, 20-plus games that they have left. I think they're going to have to amend the format for this year and realize, let's have a couple, start up almost preseason games for the playoffs and start up the playoffs as soon as possible. The NHL is in the same situation. MLB has not started yet, so they're in a situation where, essentially it's an extended spring training here, and they almost go into another off season after playing about a month of spring training games. But they won't start. They've said they're not going to start until the CDC essentially says they can. Because they don't have to. MLS stopped their season.
Right.
That will move into a weird time. And then the NFL, the off-season workouts are going to be moved back. Although I don't think the NFL is going to be too.
The NFL is probably the least affected by this. Because yes, they won't have their off-season training programs, but it's not like their season doesn't start until September, and hopefully by September. We have a clear picture of what's going on.
From everything that we've heard from the government, from the president, all that stuff, is that there hasn't been a mention of the month of September yet, of anything this traveling into September, based on scientific research so far. But you're right. I mean, the way we've reacted so far, I would not,
Here's the thing. We just found out this morning that like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, 4 Brooklyn Nets, including star Kevin Durant, got contracted with the virus, right? And they had played the Lakers, and their last regular season game before the NBA season was postponed. So now the Lakers, literally this morning, more than likely as we speak, are being tested for the coronavirus. And who knows, how many Lakers potentially have it, how many people, families and friends who they've been around in the last week or two. So we just don't know. And I think the more, just talking about sports, the more that it comes out that athletes are now that who have this virus, I think that is just going to continue to push these games further and further out. I am at the point right now where I don't believe that we will see the finishing of this regular season for the NBA. I don't believe that we will see the playoffs. Unfortunately, I think that we will see a complete cancellation of the 2019-2020 NBA season.
Yeah, well, specifically because the NBA essentially started all this too. They were the first ones to kind of make a major announcement of, hey, we're postponing the season. We're not going to do this right now because Rudy Gobert came down with the virus. Donovan Mitchell came down with the virus. Now we've heard of other players, Christian Wood from the Detroit Pistons, and now this revelation that the Nets had 4 players, including Kevin Durant, who wasn't even playing in the game. So it's strange. I'm not ready to say that I don't think these seasons will not continue. The way the trend has worked so far, it seems like a lot of people have done similar things. A lot of jobs are saying, hey, for 2 weeks, we're not open. And then for a lot of sports, it's been, okay, well, for 2 months, we're not going to do it. Or for 30 days.
Right, but, it's all tentative.
No,
because that could all change. Those are not hard, set in stone guidelines. They are just kind of preliminary measures. And it's more of like, hey, let's check back in 2 weeks. With the NBA, let's check back in the beginning of the beginning of April, and see where our players are. See if our players that do have the coronavirus, let's see if they are fully healthy then.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And by that point, we still have 12 days in the month of March before we even get to April, before they even get to that, kind of wait and see period.
Yeah.
So who knows how many other players will be contracted with the virus in those 12 days, because it seems like every day there are more and more people, right? The numbers are continuing to rise. It's not going the other way. This is getting worse right now, not getting better.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm saying I'm not optimistic that we will have an NBA regular season. I believe yesterday I read a report to where in the minor leagues for Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees, 2 minor league players were contracted with the virus as well, right? So and like I said, I don't know where those minor league players, where they're at right now, or where they're.
From what I heard is with the way minor league camp is at least set up in the Yankees facility, there would have been a rare chance that they would have even been in contact with any of the Yankees' actual major league players. So if we're looking at it from the scale of the MLB being affected by this, so far there has really been no effect, which is why I think baseball essentially is just waiting for the restrictions from the government and the CDC,
hopefully,
before they actually go on, because they're not being affected by the players. The NBA originally was the only thing affected by this, and it came out, it was either late last night or early this morning, that an Ottawa Senators player from the NHL has the coronavirus. So now the NHL is being affected. Now they're going to have to look back at what's happened there.
Right.
I don't remember when the NHL season stopped. I believe it was probably the day after the NBA.
It was shortly after the NBA.
Yeah, so you're going to have to look back and see who the Ottawa Senators played.
Exactly. Who was their last opponent?
Yeah, I believe
who was he in
I
contact with?
believe it was the LA Kings too.
Wow.
So the LA teams are getting affected by this too, which is another reason why I think California has been really restrictive on even us being able to leave our homes and stuff like that. So yeah, it's very interesting. We cannot stop this without mentioning that I personally think, because it was a cancellation, that the fact that March Madness will not happen this year that's the biggest blow for me, at least. Because March Madness is one of those things you look forward to all season. Everybody fills out their brackets. You throw a little money on who you think's going to win.
Right.
And it's a really fun thing to watch for 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, even if you're not a sports fan, right? It's just, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, I like this college, or I like this mascot, or, this team, they're the underdog, right? You can literally do an entire bracket on just underdogs. So you don't have to be a sports fan to get involved. It's kind of one of those things that really brings the entire world together. And obviously Vegas is a huge part of that as well. So to hear that Vegas is completely shut down, and here in California and Anaheim specifically, Disneyland is shut down, right? And when you hear of these businesses and corporations that are so large that you would think would never ever shut down, and March Madness is so huge, and March Madness is played in multiple different cities, right? And that's why people were saying, well, maybe March Madness can just be postponed and then we can check back in a month or two. The problem is, because you have games going on in different cities, in different states for that matter, it's very tough to relocate all of those games and try to get a schedule.
Yeah, also the fact that there's a draft that the NBA, was going to put on. Now that draft will be moved back almost guaranteed, because it doesn't make sense that you'd have a draft while the season's still going on. So I think they thought about that too, and we're like, well, all these players that are eligible for the draft literally will still be playing.
Well, so here's a little bit of good news for the NCAA and for college athletes. You have to feel for the seniors, right, who didn't get an opportunity to finish out their college careers, whether it was with the regular season or their specific conference tournament, or actually going to the NCAA March Madness tournament themselves, right? It's almost so. What the NCAA did, one of the few and rare times that I've actually agreed with the NCAA, they are granting all seniors this year basically like a 5th year or an extra year of eligibility. So if you're a senior, a current senior, and you want to come back and play for your school again next year, they're allowing you to do that because of these kind of unprecedented circumstances. So I thought that was a really cool thing that the NCAA did by saying, hey, obviously this is out of everyone's control, and we want you guys to be able to go out and be able to at least play and finish your seasons, right? So I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, what really sucks too is you just keep going down the thing, and high school athletes cannot be granted another year of eligibility. So a lot of these spring sports players, baseball, I'm forgetting some of the lacrosse, and a lot of other
track and field,
volleyball, all that stuff. They are now completely shut down and are not going to happen.
Right.
At least in California. Schools physically are going to be closed until the summer now. Most schools are now going to some online format. The advance in technology over the last couple of years has made it so that books and stuff like that, but essentially they told my brother the other day, who goes to a public school, just use your Mac. You have to use your laptop. But we're going to be doing this system and all that stuff. So At least people are still going to school, but as far as athletics go, I mean, especially with the CDC's restrictions up until mid-May, it's impossible. There's no way high school athletes are going to be able to play this season. So it really does suck for them. It sucks for college. I don't believe a lot of those major seniors are going to come back because I just think it's too much of a risk. And I think they already played out most of the season. I think if the season was canceled in the beginning, you might have people changing their minds, but it's
right. I mean, listen, if you have an opportunity to further your career and go professional in whatever sport it is and make money for your family, that is going to be very tough to pass up. Now, I'm sure there will be some people who will want to come back, right, and finish their collegiate careers, and all more power to them. There is no wrong answer in this, right? If you want to come back and play an extra year of eligibility, I get it, right? But if you also want to, if you have the opportunity to go professional and make money, potentially millions of dollars, obviously I get that as well.
Well, that, and do you look at what might happen because of all these restrictions in the economy and all that stuff, it's, you grab your money when you can. You know what I'm saying? And these athletes have an advantage there where they can go and make a lot of money right out of college. So, yeah, it's been crazy. As far as this podcast goes, we're going to try to bring you content. We're going to, next week at some point, we're going to go over the entire free agent period and kind of look at who did the best and who did the worst and all that stuff, and just to give you some content again. We'll kind of have to figure out after that what to do. We'll obviously have a NFL draft show at some point. We might make that a two-parter now, just for the sake of content and for the sake of time. Eventually, we will get to an MLB preview. It's funny, I'm glad we didn't do it yet because we now are going to wait until at least May, more than likely, to do that. So, but we might fill that in somewhere here. March Madness show obviously canceled. So there's a lot. But yeah, as far as this show, we're going to try to, for the people that are sitting at home, who's a lot of us, we want to bring you as much content as we possibly can. And that's why we didn't really put a time limit on this show either. We're kind of just shooting the breeze, talking about it. I'm glad the NFL brought us some sports excitement.
Yeah, something.
Because essentially everything's been canceled up until May. Looking forward to it, I do think we're going to have a big UFC fight on the 18th, although there probably won't be a crowd.
Yeah, that's just
and by the way,
can't get my head right.
By the way, Jared, the backstory on this fight it's Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson. Khabib, you guys remember, is the guy that jumped over the fence after he beat Conor McGregor. If you didn't know who that was. They're billing this as potentially the best fight in UFC history. And the backstory on this is they've tried to schedule this fight 4 times prior to this, and something has gone wrong every single time. And sure enough, something went wrong again.
Right.
It's a curse of the Khabib-Tony fight. But Dana White knows that, and he's holding out the chance to still put on that fight on April 18th.
Well, so guess what? Pay-per-view ratings are going to go.
Holy shit!
Right, because no one's going to be at the event.
Yeah, no, I know.
So I mean, obviously, if you're pay-per-view, I think you're stoked on that. But the fact that listen, fans. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Fans just bring a certain element, a certain energy.
They do. Yeah.
And even if you're in a away team and fans are booing, it still brings an energy. I remember playing I liked when people booed me, right? That was some.
I like when people booed me in a pickup basketball game,
right?
So imagine that.
I boo you on the show when you make a dumb point.
You didn't boo me enough for the Brady thing too. I
knew we had a lot to talk about. I didn't want to roast you too much. Okay. So, but no, it's just to not see fans in an arena or in a stadium cheering against a team or a person is just, to me, I don't know how it's going to be. Like, here's the thing. And someone had mentioned this. You're going to be able to hear like the announcers. You're going to hear everything. You're going to hear all the little stuff. You're going to hear the players like talking to each other. You're going to have a lot of cuss words, right? You're going to have a lot of bleep outs. You're going to hear the trainers yelling and talking. Like, you're going to hear so many things that in a normal event with fans you would not be able to hear. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to kind of watch out for. But like I said, in the end, to look into the stands, right? Because it's not like you can see the entire arena, but you can see the first few rows, and to see it completely empty and just the people in the ring is, I can't picture.
Yeah, it happened last weekend too. So if you want to go check that out, there's a lot of good fights too. It was entertaining for what it was. But yeah, there's a certain way they darken kind of the outside. So
right. Yeah. No, it's almost like Staples Center with Laker games. They darken the fans for the most part, unless you're sitting very close. So the spotlight is just clearly on the arena on the floor.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But so just to kind of preview you, if you don't know where this show is going to be at the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, we're going to try to give you as much content as possible. And if there essentially is a sporting event, we will talk about it.
You can bet your money we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it. So, but for this show, Tom Brady going to the Buccaneers, DeAndre Hopkins somehow in hell came to the Arizona Cardinals, and obviously most sports being canceled. But next week, NFL free agency recap, and then going on in the future, a lot more talking about football. Because it's the only thing going on. But for today's podcast, I'm Nenad.
I'm Jared Smith.
Stay safe, everybody, and this has been the Cover 2 podcast.
See you guys next week.
See you guys.